Good morning. It's John Gilkison, Aero Stealth. It is Friday, February 10th, 2023. And I wanted to shoot a short video this morning on a radio interview I did on February 8th, a couple days ago, on need for the city to help facilitate electric vehicle adoption through their permitting department. And originally this had all started out with a blog I'd written and an editorial on the need for a moratorium on permitting new gas stations. But after some thought, I kind of decided that this idea is beside the point, because gas stations are, and the gasoline-powered automobiles, going out of business on its own accord. So, and I've tried to point this out, that a moratorium would be mostly symbolic, but obviously this kind of scares the horses, I think. So, I've got into this problem of, and it comes up in English videos a lot. In other words, if someone owns an apartment or rents a house, they may not have access to 240 volt power in a garage or in a parking spot. They may have to park on the streets or whatever. And so this is an impediment to EV adoption. Now we have the same impediments here. It's just that we don't have the urban density that they have in England, and quite the same infrastructure. For example, overseas 240 volts is a lot more common than it is in the United States. We have 240 volts, but we mainly use 120 volts in our houses, and 240 volts hooked up for special applications, more heavy-duty applications. So anyway, here's the situation. If you own a house and you have a garage, and you may or may not have 240 volts in the garage, you may only have 110 volts outlets if you have power there, and you buy an electric vehicle, it may come with 120 volt EVSE, but that's of little use to you except for opportunity charging. It just takes too long. My vehicle, for example, would take 2.5 days to charge from 10% up to 80 or 90%. And besides that, 120 volts is only 80% efficient, and 240 volts 90% efficient at charging, so you don't lose quite as much power when you're charging your vehicle, converting from AC to DC. Anyway, so you buy your electric vehicle, so then you have to buy a 240 volt EVSE, and depending on what you buy, that can cost $400 up to $1,000 if you buy a lot of bells and whistles like internet connectivity and so forth. They can get more expensive, but let's say you get a middle of the road one, $500 unit, and then you need 240 volts in your garage. Well, then you have to hire an electrician, and he has to come out, and he'll have to run conduit from wherever your panel box is, which can be either close by or quite far away, and it can cost several $100s to well over $1,000 or more, depending on what your electrical wiring and service is, that he finds. So anyway, and it just occurs to me, and you see it all the time, they're building houses around here. I mean, it's a steady growth. We're not a high growth area, but anyway, they are building homes around here. And it would be a lot cheaper, a lot easier to do if garages were wired up with 240 volts from the get-go when they build a home and then they sell it. That might add a whole dollar to the mortgage instead of someone trying to do this after the fact. You bring an electrician and he has to rig it up. If the work's being done when all the other electrical work on the house is being done, it's a lot more inexpensive. And the same thing goes with apartment complexes. Let's say you have an apartment complex and they have a parking lot. Well, there should be a half a dozen or more of these parking spaces that should be wired up for 240 volts. And by that I mean there would be conduit in the ground. It would come up out of the ground. There might be a box there which the wiring would terminate. They wouldn't have to put an outlet in or anything. Just cap it off. And then when the apartment complex had a renter that had an electric car, they'd say, okay, well, you can use parking spot X. And it's up to you to provide the outlet and the EVSE. And in that case, the electric vehicle owner, what they would do is have an outlet installed in that box, and it would be weatherproofed. It would have a cover over it, and it would be 240 volts. And it might have a key on it. In other words, it would be a locked box, so only he'd be using power to that box. And so he'd unlock the box, plug in his portable EVSE, which is 240 volts, and charge his car overnight. And they would just have to keep records. If you provide a record of all the power that's taken out of that thing, you can figure a charge. It just depends on the electrical rates. Now it could be metered, and maybe the renter might have to pay for a special meter just for that unit, but it's not necessary really. It's very easy. I keep track of all my electrical consumption for my car, and you can estimate it easily within a few percent. So you could figure it out, and then just add. They could just add a round number. Like for example, I might use $30 a month to charge my car, $1 a day, and that could just be tacked on the rent. And that box would remain locked, and until the owner of the EV could access it to charge their car. Anyway, another situation that comes up quite a bit is that there is remodeling done to existing structures, and whenever that remodeling, especially if it involved electrical work and it was over a certain specified dollar figure, let's say $5,000 or whatever, then in the permitting process they would have to have 240 volt wiring provided to a garage structure, for example, or in a parking spot outdoors. And again, that could be boxed. If the owner didn't have an EV, they could just have a box out there with the wirings terminated in it, and it wouldn't be used until their home was sold or whatever. So there's all kinds of situations like this that there's an opportunity here to facilitate the adoption of electric vehicles. And one of the impediments is the lack of 240 volt wiring, especially in the United States. What I tried to point out is if you buy an electric vehicle and you don't have charging and you go to use a DC fast charger on a regular basis, it's costing you more than it would cost for gasoline. Because DC fast charging really is for traveling. It's not for regular use, not for local use. And this idea that there is level 2 chargers, let's say the city installs them in some locations, that people could use, Well, that's of no use to them either, because it could take anywhere from 6 to 7 hours to charge your car. And so you would have to go park at this thing and sit in your car for 6 or 7 hours. That ain't going to work. What these level 2 chargers are, again, they're convenience charging. Let's say I go downtown and I want to go to the Coas bookstore. Well, I can plug in down there if I wanted to, and I might be going 1 hour and I might pick up 25 miles of range, but that's it. And so that's a convenience, but it's not for regular charging. It's not for but a small percentage of my needs. So, and where this kind of stuff needs to be installed, and I don't know why people could want to confuse the issue about this. Power doesn't have to be given out for free. No one's ever claimed it had to be. And although that's happened when some of the stuff was initially installed, it's not necessary. Just like you pay for gasoline, there's no reason an electric car owner shouldn't pay for his power to run his car. I've never made that claim personally. Maybe others have, but I don't. And I can understand why there'd be objections to it by the public. Yeah, and I think it's a misnomer. It's not a road we need to go down. But let's say you go to Target or Albertsons or some outlet, and you're going to be in there for 30, 40 minutes. And if there was public charging out there for you while you're shopping or you're eating, if in the parking lot there was a charger, then you could pick up some charge. And this would be a service offered by the establishment that you were frequenting. And that needs to happen also. And that could be up to the owners. I mean, if they want to charge for it, they should. But if they don't have to. But there obviously needs to be some kind of communications built into the charger so that the managers know what's going on with it, who's using it, some kind of identification for the user. Let's say Albertsons grocery store. Well, you would have to get a card from Albertsons. That would be an RF card that you would put up to the charger to use it. It would unlock it for you, allow you to use it, and would identify who you are, and it would put that on a bill for you. Or not. It would just be up to them. So there you have it. I think there's a great deal of confusion out there about electric vehicles. I think what creates the confusion is what I call the gas station model. You drive a gas car, you go to a gas station every 3-4 days, every week, whatever it is, and you fill your tank. 5 minutes, you're done. Well, that isn't the way an electric car works at all. My car, particularly, I park in my garage every 3 or 4 days. I charge it up. I'm on an off-peak rate, so I charge it up between midnight and 8 a.m. I have the car set up to do that, and I plug it in and go in the house. And the next morning I get up. Before 8 o'clock it's done, and in the morning, and I go out and I'll get the numbers off the EVSE because I keep records. But I don't even have to do that if I didn't want to. But the car's done. I've spent a few minutes. I've spent less time than you would spend pumping gas to charge my car. And that's the way it works. So it's not a gas station model at all, except for the fact that you have a gas station in your garage, so to speak. But, so this doesn't work for public charging. So one of the things I said is they shouldn't permit new gas stations without this level 2 chargers available there. And I said, well, if no one's going to use them, why do you have to have them? Well, again, it's convenience. Someone might want to duck into one of these things if they're a little low and they just want to make sure they get home. They might spend 20-30 minutes there picking up 20-30 miles, and, or even only 15 minutes, just picking up enough miles to make sure they don't run out of juice on the way home or something like that. And plus, it bucks the public up. People who want to go buy an electric car see this charging infrastructure about, and that is helpful. So, but I don't think it's necessary for the city itself to install more of these. I think it needs to be in private hands. So that was the point I was trying to get across on this radio show, and I've been trying to get across to City Council Permits Department here, but they're not responding to me, so that's one of the reasons I wanted to shoot this video. So I'll let you go. Take care. Watch out for those electroline fumes, everybody. Bye-bye.